Big news out of the Government Accountability Office. Seriously, actually, it is big news coming out of the Government Accountability Office. And I want to thank a watcher of the channel, and actually they're a current client as well, for sending me this. I wasn't really planning on doing a video beforehand, but they said, hey, Andy, you should probably talk about this because it's kind of interesting. And if you've been, enmeshed in the VA system for a while, or maybe you've got something appealed to the Board of Veterans Appeals, this might actually be interesting. So, believe it or not, the Government Accountability Office, which is an office set up to basically act as a watchdog over other agencies to make sure that they are operating as efficiently as possible. Such an office does exist, has been investigating the Board of Veterans Appeals for a number of years. Now, if you recall, the Board of Veterans Appeals is where a veteran can appeal their claims to if they've been denied or they have gotten some sort of adverse decision at the regional office level. In my own practice, I do occasionally appeal things to the Board of Veterans Appeals, but I try to keep that to a minimum because, as we've recently learned, it can be a 3 to 4 year wait just to get your case heard. So with that said, the Government Accountability Office took a look at the VA, has been looking at the Board of Veterans Appeals for a number of years, and they have 4 recommendations for the Board of Veterans Appeals as it comes to process improvement, which is kind of interesting, actually. Before I get into this, though, I do have to talk a little bit more about the Board of Veterans Appeals itself. The Board of Veterans Appeals is quite big, actually. They are over 100 judges, veterans law judges, and each judge has a staff of a number of lawyers who help them review files and write the decisions themselves. The judges also hold hearings, gather the evidence in the hearing, and they can make 3 decisions based on the evidence. They can do something called a remand, which is send the case back to the VA for additional work. They can grant something, or they can deny something. And if a veteran doesn't agree with that decision, they have 120 days from the date of that decision to appeal to the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, sometimes called the Court or CAVIC, where it is then heard by a not a veterans law judge, but a federal appeals court judge. And from there, it can go to the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, and then from there, it can go to the Supreme Court, as 2 cases have in the last couple of years. The Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims actually has like an early dispute resolution process, where if a lawyer from the Office of General Counsel of the VA, along with the counsel for the veteran, get together and they decide, hey, you know what, there is an issue that wasn't fully explored, they can actually remand it back to the Board of Veterans Appeals for additional work. So again, there are a lot of different levels where it can get remanded. This GAO report specifically looks at the Board of Veterans Appeals, and they gave 4 recommendations. Let me talk about some of those recommendations. The first directs the chairman of the Board of Veterans Appeals to develop written policies and procedures related to the accuracy rate measures that basically figure out a way to document their accuracy. So this is taking feedback from the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims and figure out how to document what their accuracy rate is. The second recommendation was monitor how veterans law judges actually incorporate that feedback into the case review process. Makes sense, right? If you're getting feedback as a judge, you want to know so you don't repeat the same mistakes. Really, I think that's good advice for anybody. Third, they should develop an evidence-based decision-making process that includes a plan to outline how it will build evidence to assess the underlying causes for the most common errors. Really, this ties into recommendation 1, where they will come up with some sort of system where they can gather evidence from what are determined to be errors by veterans law judges and incorporate that into feedback to the veterans law judges. So they are best equipped to basically improve, right? Makes sense. And then the last one is come up with a system to actually rate the judges on their accuracy. So again, a lot of these are very similar, and they all have to do with evaluating how the board accurately comes to a decision. I think this is a very important report. I think that anytime we can improve function and efficiency and accuracy in a system, that's great. But the problem is, I think taking this report by itself kind of misses a point. The Board of Veterans Appeals has a tremendous backlog, and they make over 100,000 decisions a year in the most recent statistics. That's a huge number of decisions. The problem is that if they're making that many decisions, it's because they are getting a lot of appeals from the VA. So I think that what we need to do is or at least Congress needs to look at, or maybe the GAO needs to look at, accuracy at the VA itself. Not necessarily the Board of Veterans Appeals, I totally agree with these assessments. They totally make sense. But we need to apply the same standard at one level below that so that the errors aren't happening in the first place. I've spoken about this in the other videos I've done, whether it be the bad exam request videos or developing to deny videos or what have you. I think that across the board, more feedback needs to be developed at that lower level so that there can be more improvement at the lower level. And the folks at the VA aren't focused on speed, but rather more accuracy, making sure that good exam requests go out, good exams are conducted, and then the exams are properly evaluated, the evidence is properly received. So again, if we can focus on the evaluation at the initial stages, we don't have to worry about a backlog at the Board of Veterans' Appeals because fewer cases are going to get appealed. If you want help on your appeal, whether it's at the VA, the Board of Veterans' Appeals, or the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, give us a call. Maybe we can help you out. Until next time, take care.